he gets out of his car to walk into work. It's a converted 19-teens kind of theater, yellow brick, high ceilings. But now it's a metal shop, and his father has owned it, started the business himself. And when he opens the door, the high ceilings, the echoing sound of the clanging machines, and some robotics in the corner. His father sees the slant of light fall across the shop floor and throws up a hand to wave good morning, but this, his youngest son, ignores him completely, heads straight to the office. His heart is as heavy as his lunch pail, and his annoyance is as loud as the machines. He pushes open the door to the office, and his elder brother, who's bent over some books, looks up, nods at him. He gets ignored too. His two uncles now sense their nephew's mood and don't even bother with the hello. He walks over to his desk and drops his pail and begins to open his thermos to pour a cup of coffee. But all he can see is the thin layer of dust on the back of his desk, the fog that's somehow already accruing in his goggles, and the list of clients he just doesn't want to call. He hears the door swing open, and his father walks in and says, "Good morning, son. Is everything okay?" And his dad stands and waits for a second. And still with the thermos and the cup, the son decides this is the moment to do it. He's played the conversation in his head when he's in the shower and when he goes to bed at night and when he's really angry, and he knows exactly what he wants to say. And he turns around and he says, "You know what, Dad? I'm really sick of this place. I hate machines and I hate metal. I don't like calling clients. And before I die, I'd like to live a little. So why don't you give me my half of the business now so I can go and make something of my life?" And despite all the clanging that fills the factory, the office descends into a kind of deafening silence. One of the uncles moves slightly in his rolling chair, and the whole thing creaks. And the elder brother just stares, somewhat unveiling his disgust for his younger brother. And the other uncle holds his head in his hands because it's always this nephew, the uncontented nephew, the ungrateful nephew, the nephew who thinks that the grass is always greener on the other side and has no idea how good he's got it. The man stands there in defiance, but his father takes his measure, his kindly eyes clouded with some pain. And he sees the unhappiness of his youngest son, and so he says, "Very well. Your uncle will assess the bank accounts, make a few calls to the insurance company, and we'll drop a check in your account by the end of the week. You're free to go." And the father blinks a couple times a little too quickly, and he kind of takes a half step forward towards his youngest son to comfort him, but then he turns around and walks back to the shop floor where his work is. And the uncle in the creaky chair rises quickly, throws his nephew a death stare, and tries to catch up with his brother, because he has to convince him that this is a terrible idea. If they divide half the business, what's going to happen to the business? They have employees. They have themselves. Are they going to take out a loan? Are they going to sell it? And when this small town hears what the father has done, oh boy, the rumor mill will go to town. Everybody will know by evening, and the humiliation will be unending. He has to reverse the decision. The older brother slams his book shut, walks by, shoves his younger brother, and goes out the back door. And the other uncle begins to frantically type passwords into their PNC bank account to figure out what they've got and who he's supposed to call. And the younger brother stands there. He's still got the thermos in his hand. And he thought he'd feel elated. But instead he feels something more like loss. Like his dad actually is going to let him go, and he didn't think that would happen. He was spoiling for a fight, but now I guess he's free. And so he walks out the back door to start a new life. But the emptiness of that and the untethered emotion of it fades. And by the end of the week, he's made arrangements for where he's going to go, he's packed his suitcase, and the minute the check drops, he makes a down payment on a beautiful dark blue metallic Tesla X, to be specific, and heads out. Rural Pennsylvania in his rearview mirror, New York City, here he comes. He installs himself in the Upper East Side apartment that he made arrangements about earlier in the week, right off Central Park. Quite nice. High doorman. And begins to decide to make some friends. And so he spends a lot of money. Best of the restaurants in meatpacking. Here's some Pappy Van Winkle, for those of you who like it. And moving on and on and on, he grows a circuit of friends. And sometimes it all feels kind of noisy. And sometimes he wonders about how his dad is. But when it happens, he just takes another drink or he goes for a run, because if he stopped moving, what would he find? There's a kind of emptiness that lurks at the edges of it all. But now he's on the party circuit, and it's a good time. And he gets invited to better and better parties because he's flush with cash. But pretty soon the pills start going around at the parties, and they're pretty fun. They make it a good time, but then it's not enough, and he has to take more of those, and then it feels like maybe it's time to try something new. And so pretty soon the drugs are harder and harder, and he's more and more addicted. And then one day, 3 years in, he goes to put his bank card in, and there's nothing left. And so the apartment is emptied, his stuff's on the curb, that Tesla X is repoed. And he's got an addiction he can't feed. And he finds himself one night shaking in an alley, thinking he's going to die because withdrawal is a bitter thing. And he doesn't know how much time passes when he finally comes to himself and realizes, beyond all shock, that he's actually alive. And he scrounges in some trash cans trying to find some sustenance. And it comes to him like almost a heartache and a vision all at once, his dad's face. And he thinks, why am I doing this? My dad, he gives loans to his employees that need them. He's helped employees get sober. I should just go home. This has been miserable. And it's the first time he owns it to himself. And he looks at himself and he's nasty and he doesn't have money for a bus, but he's got to get there. And so takes a deep breath, he walks to the curb, and he throws out his thumb. Such pride, right? A selfish myopia, but a lostness too. A frenzy that covered over a kind of emptiness, a kind of missing of the meaning of life, and a robbing of joy. I wonder how many times we've found ourselves to be the younger son. He finds himself, after a while, back at that yellow brick converted theater. And he draws an even deeper breath, and he opens the door. And it's 2 p.m, so no one's expecting anyone to come back too late for lunch, like nobody's quitting. So the slant of light that falls across the floor catches his father by surprise. And his father looks over to see who's possibly coming in, and for a second he thinks he's dreaming, because he's imagined this moment for 3 years. But it's real. And he actually drops what he's holding and walks and then runs and nearly tackles his son. And the poor young man just begins to weep. And his dad is weeping, and like no one knows what to do. And it's a small shop, so, news moves. And pretty soon the uncles come out of the office, and then the elder brother comes out of the office. And the elder brother, it's his nightmare. Is it really his brother? Yeah. Looking a little shredded. Looking way thin and pretty gray. And everyone in the shop, the machine's kind of slow because no one knows what to do. But the father turns around and he's got his arm around his son and he says, "This is the greatest day. He's back, and tonight we're having a party at the top of Walnut Street. Come on to my house. We're going to do it. You, go find some good meat. Beef tenderloin, please. You guys, it's time to go buy the best the state store has to offer with some red wine. Tonight's the party." And now everybody understands, see? And they may have thought the father was super foolish to have divided half the business, but they saw the pain it cost him. He's thinner too. And they knew that he wanted the son back, that his heart was wherever this boy had gone. And so they start to rejoice, and even the uncles, because man, the kid looks like he's been through it, right? They even come over to say, welcome back. But not the elder son. He turns on his heel and he stomps back to the office in a way that suggests his ankles might not survive the moment. And the father sees him. And he heads off at about the same speed that he came to greet the younger son, and he catches him in the office and he says, your brother is back. But the elder son turns on him and, nearly spitting in an absolute rage, he says, "Are you kidding me? Really, Dad? Really? Like, he acted like you were dead. He jeopardized our entire future. He didn't care about our family. And you never even offered to grill me hot dogs with my buddies or have some Budweiser, and now look at this. Beef tenderloin, you gotta be kidding me. He was lost. He spent all your money in this. I hate him." And he slams his fist down on the table in a rage he doesn't know what to do with. And the father ventures a step forward and tries to place a hand on his shoulder, but the brother knocks it off. He says quietly, "You know, son, I didn't know you felt like that. Because, see, for me, seeing you at work every day is the greatest joy of my life. And I thought that every meal that we had and every afternoon walk that we took to talk about strategy and every new client we got that we celebrated, I thought you knew it was all yours. That this and the house and all the property belongs to you, and it always has and it always will. I didn't know. You see, I thought it was such a joy to have your kids learn how to walk in my garden and have us share dinner and fires. But you know, I love you. And I love your brother, who's made inordinate mistakes, and I don't have all the answers about what it means that he's back, but he was lost and now he's found. And so won't you come to the party?" And the other brother looks at him with hate in his eye, and he slams out the back door and just lets the fire door crash. Starts up his truck and peels out of the gravel lot. So much anger. Thinking that the task was more important than the relationship, letting the dutifulness and the responsibility and the legalism of it all replace any kind of joy. Getting all the rules right and yet utterly missing the point. And so I wonder, how many times have we found ourselves to be the elder brother? Father stands there and he watches as the cloud of gravel dust comes back down to earth. And he turns and he walks back into the shop, which is quiet now, and he sees that his other son is still rooted in place. Poor boy is just weeping. And the father doesn't know what to do. Maybe this is the first time he's been safe in 3 years, and so he just goes over and holds him because he loves this son. But half his heart is in a parking lot because he loves that son too. And that's it. It's a prodigal kind of hospitality. A love that holds both this lost son, this obvious sinner, and the other son who thinks he's found, the mock saint. Father's love holds them both equally. The one who thinks he's found and is lost, and the one who was lost and now is found. And it's a kind of love that gives up anything for either one of them. He didn't care if the whole town talked. He didn't care what his other shop owners thought. His compassion and care for his sons was too great. He loved them at any cost, gave up anything for them. That's a prodigal hospitality. It's a kind of exquisite but extravagant kind of grace. A wasteful love. So I wonder how many times we found ourselves lost and found and held in the absolute lavish love of our holy parent. And beyond the question of what son, because those are two poles of our existence, I wonder if the invitation isn't to find a way to live like the Father, to lavish love, to have a prodigal kind of hospitality, to extend a kind of wasteful grace in all directions. Quickly, bring out a robe, best one. Put it on him. Put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate.